Welcome everyone to tonight's meeting of the Urban Planning Delegated Committee. Before we commence the meeting, I request that all mobile telephones be turned off or switched to silent. Thanks very much. My name is Councillor Westgalt and I chair this committee meeting. I will start by introducing my fellow councillors. On my left is Councillor Lisa Hollingsworth, Councillor Shima Abuki, Councillor Sophie Torney, our Mayor, Councillor Michael Nolan, Councillor Felicity Sinfield. On the other side of the horseshoe table is Councillor Victor Franco, our Deputy Mayor, Councillor Mal Osborne-Smith, Councillor Rob Ballieu, and Councillor John Friend Pereira. Welcome back, John. We also have Councillor Chris Pappas, largely looming over my shoulder, and he is attending obviously tonight through Teams. I also acknowledge Manager Governance and Legal, Mr. Brian Wee, to my left, and Director Urban Living, Mr. Scott Walker, on my right. Other officers are here tonight and will be introduced as we get into the body of the meeting. As a general introduction, the Urban Planning Delegated Committee meeting is being live streamed on Council's YouTube to enable viewing of the proceedings outside this chamber. The meeting is also being recorded and will be made available as soon as possible, again on Council's YouTube, as soon as practical after the meeting. The primary purpose of the Urban Planning Delegated Committee is to deal with issues under the Planning and Environment Act and the Building Act. This committee has delegated authority to make decisions on behalf of Council. For those of you presenting this evening, and there are a few, when we come to the agenda item, which is the first, it will be introduced by an officer, and then I shall call you one by one to come forward and join us at the table and address the committee. If you're making a submission, please present your viewpoints clearly and concisely on why you support or oppose the planning application. Please do not repeat what earlier speakers have said, and keep focused on the relevant issues and points not previously raised. If you oppose the planning application, please tell the committee why you disagree and suggest an alternative approach that would satisfy your concerns. Focus on your concerns rather than matters of history or details in the officer's report. There's going to be a strict 3-minute limit on each speaker, and that will include councillors. And whilst I chair this meeting and can vary that times, we seldom do. At the 2.5-minute mark, I will ring a bell indicating you have 30 seconds left to complete your presentation. For those in the gallery this evening, I would like to take this opportunity to remind you to extend due courtesy and respect for each other and to the committee as a whole, and refrain from any inappropriate behaviour. And just to finish, I would like to encourage all submitters, officers and councillors to speak directly to the microphone. This will ensure we can all hear the proceedings going on. I will now move to item 1 on the agenda, apologies. Mr. Wee, are there any apologies this evening?
Through you, Chair, there are no apologies this evening.
Thank you. Item 2, adoption and confirmation of the minutes of the Urban Planning Delegated Committee meeting held on the 21st of July this year. Councillors, can I please have a motion to adopt and confirm these minutes? Councillor Abuki.
Happy to move to adopt the minutes. Thank you.
Here we have a seconder, Councillor Ballieu.
So seconded, Chair.
Thank you. Is anyone opposed? None. I'll go through the procedures. All of those in favour? No one against. That motion is carried. I'd now like to move to item 3, declarations of conflict of interest of any councillor or council officer. Councillors, council officers, are there any conflicts of interest that you wish to foreshadow for matters in the agenda tonight? Councillor Ballieu.
I wish to foreshadow a general conflict of interest.
Thank you. When it comes to that the item, which is the next item, we'll remind you. We will move on directly now to the main body of the meeting, presentation of the officer's report. Item 4.1, 39 Barton Street, Hawthorn. Amendment to a cafe patron numbers, trading hours and liquor licence. This will be presented by Officer Lucy Johnston, Principal Urban Planner.
Thank you, Chair. Before I commence the presentation of this item, I have two matters to draw to the attention of the committee and those in attendance tonight. It is acknowledged a petition was received with 267 signatories in support of the extended hours. Officers have turned their mind to this, however, the recommendation remains unchanged. Since the application was subsequently amended, which was after the deferral of the item on the 5th of May, changes to how liquor licences are dealt with under the planning scheme have been made by the state government. Planning permission is no longer required for liquor licences, which are now dealt with by Liquor Control Victoria. Upon further review of the proposal before us, we have sought further legal advice to clarify how the liquor licence component should be properly considered this evening, and we are subsequently putting forward an updated officer recommendation, which is on the screen now. The decision does not change the recommendation, but makes the assessment more technically correct in relation to the revised pathway for liquor licence approval. The alternative, the updated officer recommendation has been circulated to the council laws. Moving on. Okay. Yep. The application is for an amendment to an existing planning permit at 39 Barton Street in Hawthorn. The land is located in the neighbourhood residential zone and affected by the heritage overlay. It is proposed to increase patron numbers from 35 to 40, increase trading hours to commence at 7 a.m. on weekends and to conclude at 10 p.m. Thursday to Saturday. It's proposed to construct 2 retractable awnings on the southern facade of the building, construct a timber window ledge or servery, and construct a storage shed in the rear yard. I note that following the deferral of the item, the application was subsequently amended to reintroduce the dinner service until 10 p.m. Thursday to Saturday. Following 2 rounds of advertising, 23 objections and 4 letters of support have been received. Key issues generally included increased noise and disruption from cafe operations of an early morning and of the evening, unreasonable amenity impacts on the residential area, including light spill, litter and odour, for example, safety concerns, including antisocial behaviour and from crowding of the footpath, worsening traffic congestion and parking concerns, that the buildings and works are unlawful and detract from the heritage area. It's worth noting that supporters of the application noted the proposal would enhance vibrancy and employment opportunities in the area and encourage a diverse and lively neighbourhood. Following the consideration of the relevant planning policy and the advice of Council's Heritage Advisor, the submissions received and the concerns heard in the planning consultation meeting, it is recommended that a notice of decision to grant an amended planning permit be issued, which supports the buildings and works component and 5 additional patrons, but makes no change to the existing hours of operation. Thank you.
Thanks, Ms Johnson. Now, tonight, we have 11 in the gallery who have indicated that they wish to make a submission. 6 are against the recommendation, and I point out that's the recommendation as shown before us. It doesn't vary in substance from what has been publicly available prior hereto, so it means roughly the same thing apart from the adjustments to the liquor licence laws. And 5 support the recommendation. Once I've announced your name, please come forward and sit at the head of the table and join us there. If a submitter is not present, I shall move on to the next speaker. I'll remind you again, you have 3 minutes for your presentation. And I'd ask you also to please start your submission with your name and the suburb in which you live. I will call first Sally Ruston to come and join us.
start?
Thank you. If you just start with your name and the suburb, then you can commence.
Okay, thank you. My name is Dr. Sally Ruston, and my suburb is West Hawthorn. I do speak in support of this application because I feel it's important for our area to have another amenity. I have looked at various state and Burundara policies and procedures, and I feel that there's quite a few themes within them that would support these amendments. Barton's Cafe location provides an excellent location for a community eatery or bistro, whatever you'd like to call it. It provides at the moment superb facilities for social groups and groups of all ages, again, part of our policies and procedures. This area is likely to have a high proportion of new families, elderly and single home residents, not all necessarily like me. But the clientele already varies considerably, from the early morning cyclists to the early morning service personnel who get their coffee before going to work, parents dropping off their children from school, little old ladies who like coffee and cake for discussion of the day, again, social isolation is addressed. But we also don't consider the people who come at the weekend to watch or to participate in sport or just walking their dogs. Barton's Cafe currently provides delicious and nutritious food and beverage, and this is in addition to our local eateries of Gibson's Wine Bar and the Elgin Pub. However, the clienteles and the food provided are very, very different. Part, again, of the social policies within the Burundara and state look at health and nutrition for our residents as being very important. And therefore, quality nutritious food is an important additive to have available for our members in our community. Burundara, the point of having a good cafe or bistro or eatery, I believe, is important for our city and our area as a whole. And I fail to see that by adding a few more seats, extending the hours, would be a strain on the noise, parking, or through traffic in the area. As I live in Denman Street, I can attest to that. In fact, the corner will be enhanced, so I do ask for consideration in supporting this movement and this amendment. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Can I just ask you to clarify what you support? Do you support the application by the applicant or the motion before us tonight, which is not to allow the
This was a
extension?
confusion on the form outside. I support the application by the applicant, the owners of Barton's Cafe.
Thank you very much. And now, councillors, are there any questions of this submitter tonight? There are none. Thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you, members.
Now I call upon John Kennedy to come forward and join us.
Good evening. Yes, John Kennedy from Hawthorn and a neighbour in Denham Street. I belong to the St Joseph Mews Retirement Village with 100 residents within 100 metres of Barton.
So if you'd start your presentation, that'd be great.
I'm sorry?
If you'd continue.
I wish to speak, I just speak in favour of the amendment, in particular the notion of Thursday, Friday and Saturday evening hours. I don't believe that we would be repeating anything quite like that in this immediate area. When you look at Hawthorn West and up there, there's pub, there's Gibson's, fine establishments in both cases, and one or two other things, but nothing quite like what happens at Barton's. And I know a lot of our residents, for example, very much value Barton being so close to where we live, particularly during the day, and I'm sure many would welcome the provision of an evening meal possible on Thursday, Friday and Saturday nights. I don't really need to say any more than that.
Thank you very much. Councillors, are there any questions of this submitter? There are none. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Ms. Pesamenti, if you'd like to join us, thank you. Before you commence, if you just excuse us for a moment, we missed the gentleman over my left shoulder. Councillor Pattis, have you got a question that we can answer now?
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to clarify the previous speaker, I believe, was not in favour of the officer's recommendation, but in favour, in fact, the applicant with extended trading hours. Is that correct?
Is that correct, Mr. Kennedy? He's waiving acceptance of that.
Thank you.
You happy with that, Councillor Pattis? Thank you.
Yeah, we just need to be, just want to know whether the speakers are in favour of the extended trading hours or whether they're not in favour. That would make it a little bit easier.
There is some
for me.
confusion, Councillor. We recognise that. Thank you for raising that. Right, okay. Sorry for the delay.
It's okay.
You might like to start with whether you're in support of the extended hours.
I am in support of the extended hours.
Thank you. We'd
So I
just like
am
to...
not in support of the recommendation.
Fantastic. So for the record, can you just mention your name and your
My
subject?
name is Montserrat Pesimenti. I live in Lisongrove, Hawthorne. I have nothing to do with this application. I know nobody there. My husband used to go quite often. He loved the place. Now, for Mr. Scott, 8 months of negotiations for an application, somebody that is running a business, I think is a bit too long. Just as an example, if you're running a business, you wanted to keep moving, and obviously it is something that is an ongoing and well-thought place. Just as an example, Glenferrie Road has got 24 vacant shops. So that's just to say you don't want to kill one person that is doing really well and has got a lot of support. The Mill Bar obviously used to be a big business there, and your recommendation is talking about heritage area and, you know, the neighborhood. Well, for 150 years or more, there used to be the White Horse Inn Hotel facing the blooming St. James Park. So I can't see why this sort of 10 o'clock extension to the hours, which is ridiculous. I can't even complain if my neighbors are making noise anywhere until 11 o'clock. This is 10 o'clock, for God's sake. It's not 1, 2, or 3 in the morning. So I am in favor of extending the hours, just as a resident. And to bring amenity to Hawthorne, because the bridge is very close, the Amora is just across the road, or the bridge, and if there is noise with the neighbor in 37, which to me sounds as if they're very vocal, they could put a soundproof wall. I can see what the difficulty in that is, a bit of money, but so we can't take it with us. I think that's all I have to say.
You just beat me to the bell, Mrs. Pesamenti. Thank you very much. Councillors, are there any questions? Councillor Hollingsworth.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Mrs. Pesamenti. It's good to see you this evening. Did you say you live fairly close to this establishment?
No, I don't. I live close to Glenferrie Road on the end of Lisongrove, but I have been there, not in the last year and a half, but I have been there. And I used to no work. I used to do religious instruction at West Hawthorne, and I know the vermin that is mentioned again quite a lot.
That's fine. No, sorry, I thought you said you live close to this
No,
business.
I don't have anything to do. I just read the report, because you know I come every week. And I thought, oh my God, 10 o'clock.
Thank
It's
you.
ridiculous.
Yeah, no,
That's-
thank you very much. Thank you.
Councillor Pattis.
Thank you, Chair. Through you, I just wanted to ask the Speaker whether she felt that this venue had, in her opinion, good family values and also would be beneficial for the local community.
Could you make out that question?
I didn't make it out. It just come and went.
Councillor Pattis, would you mind just repeating it, please, into...
Sorry.
I wanted to know, in the opinion of the Speaker, does this venue represent good family values and is it of benefit to the local community?
Definitely, it's close to the school, and as the first speaker said, parents go past it and they stop there for their coffee or even meeting people. Definitely, it's got family value. And then at the weekends when St. James Park is used, people use it. It's a fantastic facility. And I think the extended hours are not exaggerated. That's my view of that. As I said, it's not 1 o'clock or whatever the time. It's 10 o'clock, for God's sake. In summer, 9:30 gets dark.
Thank you. Councillor Osborne-Smith.
Thank you, Chair, and thanks for your presentation, Madam. Quick question about the White Horse Hotel. For the benefit of the other councillors, can you remind us where that old hotel was located? If memory serves me correctly, it's on the corner of Barton Street, was on the corner, I should say, of Barton Street and Power Street.
No.
Barton Street and Burwood Road.
That was the Victorian two-story hotel, which I never saw. That was demolished in 1961.
No, sorry, I'm referring to the White Horse.
Yeah. The one you're talking about in the corner of Burwood Road and Barton Street, that was two-story Victorian hotel, demolished in 1961. Then there was another hotel built more to the center, and it had huge entrance with a lot of parking in front. Was painted white, I think it was 1 story, and that was immediately facing St. James Park. And that was demolished. I couldn't look, I looked at the permits, but it was demolished to build the 3-story office block that is there. And that was demolished, I would say, around the year 2000.
Yes, and what was the name of that hotel?
It was also the White Horse.
That's what I thought, yes. So if memory serves me correctly, there was a large hotel, the White Horse Hotel, a mere, 100 metres from where this location is. And that was
because there is a thing, a lane, and then there are some houses, and then there is the other
Lennox Street, okay.
Yes.
So it was a busy pub on the corner of the park that has now been demolished and replaced with fairly innocuous office buildings.
No innocuous, it's got very bright colours.
Right, but it's
as
an
a
office
facade.
use, not
Yes.
okay.
Yeah,
That's all I wanted to check. Thank you very much.
thank you. Anybody else?
Thank you, Mrs. Pessimenti. That exhausted questions. If you could return to the gallery. Thank you. I now call upon Jaden Matty to come forward and join us. If you wouldn't mind just starting with saying whether you support the extension of hours or not, to clarify that point.
I do support the extension of the hours, yes.
Thank you. So if you just start formally with your name and the suburb in which you live, that'd be great.
Yes, hi, I'm Jaden and I live in Kew.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Well, I've lived in Boroondara most of my life. I'm 29. I grew up in Hawthorn in Yarra Street, went to Hawthorn West Primary, and I remember going down to Barton when it was the milk bar to get our lollies after school, and the presence of local businesses like Barton is what makes our community our community. And Barton is a very community-minded local business. I've spent most of my time in Boroondara working with local charities and organisations, including many years attending the church at Hawthorn West Baptist Church, 36 Barton Street, and several years working in that building as part of the team at Servants Community Housing as well. And in each of the organisations where I've had the privilege of working, Barton has been an active supporter of those community values, wanting to strengthen friendships, relationships, helping vulnerable people connect with their community more broadly. In the paperwork before us, there's an objection detailed that suggests the extended hours would threaten the peace and character of the neighbourhood. But it's difficult, I think, to find many more local businesses that actually do the opposite, that strengthen our neighbourhood character, that help people feel at home, that support local organisations, that bring people together. In fact, there's a big difference between establishing a nightclub that's going to be out until 2 o'clock in the morning with heavy drinking and a local business that might serve a glass of wine over dinner. Extending the hours at Barton brings more employment for young people, particularly those who are entering hospitality. It's often their first jobs. Those are very difficult jobs to get at the moment. And supporting the increase of hours would likely have other flow-on effects. You take your dog to the park and you go and grab a coffee, and you're more likely to do that when there's a cafe on the corner. You're more likely to go for a walk around the Oval in the evening when you feel safe because there's a local business operating. So very much in support, and just for the council's interest, a nice little photo here that you probably can't see on my phone of the White Horse Inn that our friend earlier just said to us on the corner of Barton Road and Bellwood Road. I dare say that the impact of that pub would have been significantly different from a few extra hours having dinner at Barton Cafe. So very much in support. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Councillors, are there any questions? Councillor Bookie.
Thank you very much through you, Chair. Thank you, Mr. Paddy, for that. And I just wanted to ask you if you could elaborate on your comment about Barton Milk Bar helping vulnerable people in the community.
Yeah, so although I'm not here as a representative of Servants Community Housing, I do live alongside a group of our residents at one of Servants' properties, which is owned by Council on High Street in Kew. And one of the initiatives that we have is a social enterprise that helps vulnerable residents in Boroondara create honey through beehives, and also pick apples at regenerative farms in Warragul, which then get processed and sold through local businesses here in Melbourne. And if I remember correctly, I think Barton was the very first local business that decided that they would stock the juice, and have been avid supporters since, helping our residents come and drop off juice, helping us get media attention to support fundraising for social housing, but also supporting us when we run fundraisers and other community activities as well. Thanks.
Thanks, Mr. Paddy. That appears to have exhausted the questions. You could return to the gallery. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I now call upon Jet Sargood. If I get you to start by saying extended hours or no extended hours.
Extend the hours,
Thank
please.
you.
Good evening, and thank you for giving us the opportunity to speak tonight. My name is Yetta Sargood, and I'm a resident of Hawthorn. I live just 75 metres from Barton, and I'm absolutely in favour of Barton extending its trading hours for dinner service 3 nights a week. As a parent with young children at Hawthorn West Primary School, I know how important it is to have local accessible options for meals, especially places that we can walk to. At the moment, we find ourselves needing to drive all the way to Glenferrie Road or other busy strips, which isn't always practical and often detracts from that sense of community connection. This cafe has already proven itself to be a valuable part of our neighbourhood. It's a warm, welcoming space that fosters connection, supports local employment, and contributes to the safety and vibrancy of our area. Extending its hours slightly, just a few nights a week, would make a meaningful difference to local families like ours, while supporting a small business that truly understands and serves our community. And just something I didn't write here, but we had about 50 emails go out to Rob tonight. I'm sure it's even more, that as soon as we caught wind of this council meeting, which we actually only found out about 24 hours ago, you should have seen the local community just whip into action, because all people like me who are in favour of the extended hours. And Rob, who's no longer here, very kindly wrote back to most of us, so thank you for that. I'd also like to add that if I was meeting friends at Barton who come from beyond walking distance, it's great that St James Oval offers upwards of 30 parking spots that are typically empty from 5 p.m. onwards. We actually have photo proof we've collected the last 2 nights. And so, you know, I've got 6 car spots between me and Barton, and I have no issue with parking, as like that is not an issue for us. I understand the importance of balancing residential amenity with commercial activity, but I believe this proposal does just that. Limited reasonable hours in a responsible, well-managed setting. It's a small change that could have a big positive impact. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. If you just remain in your seat. We do have Councillor Rabuki.
Thank you, through you, Chair. Ms Sargood, you mentioned that the establishment provides local employment. Could I just ask how you know that and maybe some of the details around that?
I don't have the specifics, but I do see them all walking to work in the mornings. I get up at the crack of dawn with my kids, so I do see them opening up. So yes, all local, and they have extensive local knowledge. I've been living in Hawthorn for 4 or 5 years now, and it's very familiar faces, people that are familiar with the community, check in with people, you know, about comings and goings, crutches, this, that and the other. So yes, very much local.
Councillor Osborne-Smith.
Thank you for your presentation. Can you comment, please, on some of those typical annoyances that we often suffer around cafe areas? I'm talking about rubbish, I'm talking about, you know, the coffee cups that end up getting stuffed in bins, you know, papers blowing down the street. They're often complaints and concerns that people have about these sorts of uses. Do you experience much of that? Would you like to comment on
No, and I'm surprised by that because I actually don't see that at all. I would say, if anything, it's dog poo bags. Is the only issue I ever come across, or lack thereof, in terms of like people not picking up after their dogs. I've never, that's never even a thought that's crossed my mind about the waste coming from a cafe or any mess associated with it. And I know that the staff have a huge sense of pride of the space and keep it very sharp. So do the local community. So I don't see that being an issue. And especially that doesn't come into play at all with dinner service. They're not getting takeaway dinners, or I'm sure, I don't know if that's something that they're considering, but it's going to be plated service, I would imagine. So there'd be no waste generated in that sense.
Thank you.
Councillor Friend Pereira.
Thank you, Chair. Ms Sargood, you mentioned the importance of this as a potential family-friendly venue for you. Within sort of a 1 kilometre area, what venues do you currently have available for an evening meal for families that you could bring young children to?
No, there's one place called Haya on Church Street, and that would be it. And I can't say that the vibe there is anything like Barton provides. No offence to Haya, but yeah, I would never take my kids to the Elgin. I think Gibson's is amazing for adults, but I would never take my children there. It's just walls of alcohol. Yeah, we have to go up to Glenferrie Road pretty much.
So in your opinion, what has been proposed by Barton's would fill a gap for young families?
Yeah, I'm so enthusiastic about this. I can't even tell you. And same with, we have a WhatsApp group with 50 or so parents. That's in my immediate friendship group in Hawthorn West Primary, and they also go to the local West Hawthorn preschool and kinder. And like the amount of emails and messages that have been going around today in support of this is just, we would all be there a lot. Yeah, and we're not going to be there, you know, raging on like a nightclub.
Ms Sargood, thank you very much for your presentation. That seems to have exhausted the questions tonight. James Lasky. I suspect, Mr. Lasky, I don't have to ask you the position you have about extended hours. If you just mention your name and the suburb in which you live, that'd be great.
Yep, not a problem. My name is James Lasky and I live in Camberwell. Sorry. So here is my vision. You've had a rough day at work, you get home at 5 p.m, The kids are feral, you haven't organised anything for dinner, and it's too late. You don't want to drive, great. Barton is open for dinner. Let's walk down there, they've got a kids menu, an affordable menu, delicious food. You might even meet some of the other neighbours there for a catch-up like what currently happens during the day. Everyone eats, you leave a mess, you go home, everyone's in bed by 9 o'clock. It doesn't sound too bad, does it? Like, it's really not such a bad thing. Now, I grew up in Boroondara. I've lived here my whole life. I think council does a fantastic job. I commend the staff and its officers, and there is no place I'd rather live. My kids go to school here, and the amenity is fantastic, while also being very safe. I love cafes, and I love cafe culture, and I've been to almost every cafe in Boroondara. For comparison, Aura Cafe in Kew East and Fordham Milk Bar in Middle Camberwell are daytime cafes which in the last few years have done exactly what I'm trying to do. They have extended their opening hours to include a dinner service. I've been there, it's great, and it's exactly what their community needs. I'm not reinventing the wheel. Knowing that at least 2 other cafes in residential areas have successfully opened for evening service made me excited to offer the same at mine. How is this any different to them? This beautiful building in which I trade out of has been a milk bar, convenience store, grocer, not since the 80s or the 70s, or the 60s or the 50s. It's been a milk bar in operation since 1920. I spoke to previous tenants who operated the milk bar in daytime and at night time. One said he was always open just to make a sale. A cafe restaurant is a different business, I agree, to a milk bar. But the fact that the site has always traded both night and day means everyone who lives in the neighbourhood now has moved in knowing that it has been a business. I'd like to provide a few dot points. I could have applied for every night of the week, but I feel like 3 nights is reasonable. Closing at 10 p.m. really isn't that late. I've had a liquor licence in my name since 2010, and I've had a clean sheet with no complaints or concerns. This is a cafe and restaurant liquor licence. If someone wants a drink, it needs to come with a meal. Extending hours creates jobs, and also this might not work, so let's just give it a shot. People in the park across the road, they're there until very late under lights. Is it that much different? My sister and I are very fair and reasonable, and we want what's best for the community, and we do not want divide. May I ask the councillors to please take time to make this decision, or perhaps for me to suggest that maybe a trial period could be a good idea, and it really, maybe over the warmer months, the summer months.
Mr. Lasky, can you wrap up now, please? Thank you.
Yes, I guess even if you are a councillor who's against this application, maybe just please consider a trial for me to have a crack at this business. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hollingsworth.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Mr. Lasky, for your presentation. Clearly a bit of passion there, but I can understand. I have got a question, but I just wanted to start by saying I do know the Fordham Village Cafe, which was a milk bar initially, very well. That's in the ward that I represent, so I understand what you're saying, that runs from early morning through to evenings to offer family-friendly meals. But the question I wanted to ask you is, Sunday morning to open at 7 o'clock, which is typically that one day of a week where residents would like to have a sleep in. Have you considered how you could open relatively quietly without disrupting your abutting neighbours?
Well, I think to apply for something like that with the permit is just to allow the flexibility of maybe doing that down the track. So it may not be that we open it. It might be earlier on. I feel like it's early trade on Saturday would be really good with the sport across the road starting quite early. But maybe Sunday, maybe the restriction is in place and 8 a.m. is absolutely fine how we currently operate. I feel like summertime, people are up early, especially with young kids. We get up at 5 a.m., all the time. But I feel like something like that, even just for over summer, and I know that the council doesn't offer a seasonal permit alteration or anything, but I think it just provides that flexibility. But I'd be more than happy to keep that to 8 a.m, but hopefully maybe 7 a.m. on a Saturday might be meeting us halfway.
Thank you. And if I may, one quick follow-up question. The other typical disruption would be deliveries, and I just wanted to ask you, have you got some mitigation in place of times of delivery should council support your permit application?
I don't think deliveries would change, and they definitely, I feel like they wouldn't change because all of the deliveries would be made how they currently are between 9 and we currently close at 3 p.m. So deliveries are made between 9 a.m. and 3 p.m. Maybe on the odd occasion they might get there earlier and just drop it off, but deliveries would not be made at night time for the nighttime service.
And not necessarily earlier if you were to open early?
No.
All right, thank you.
Councillor Pattis.
Thank you, Chair. Through you, I wanted to ask the Speaker, if Council was of a mind to allow the extended hours and change the current recommendation, is there anything that you would want from Council in terms of maybe improving the safety around that area from the point of view of traffic, reducing maybe the speed of traffic, maybe lighting and so forth? Is there anything we can do, because this is likely going to be sort of nighttime hours? Anything that Council can do or you can do to ensure that we continue to have a safe environment in that area?
Well, thanks for that, and that's a really important note because safety on that corner definitely comes first, and I would welcome working with the council, whichever department, to come up with a good plan of ensuring everyone's safety. A few of the other speakers have mentioned that it is very much a family environment with lots of young kids running around, and that's not ideal for a corner site. We used to have some barriers up around near where there's like a little fire hydrant, but something like that, I think we could work together and work something out that there's appropriate lighting for if there is an evening, if it's granted that we can open in evenings, maybe make some lighting appropriate, and I'm happy to wear the cost of that, whatever we need to do to keep the place safe.
Happy with that? Councillor Frank.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Mr. Lassie, for your presentation. You mentioned two venues that were similar, that have got extended hours. One is Fordham, which I'm aware of, and the other, I think you were speaking so fast to get through at the time that I didn't catch it. So I wonder if you might just explain how that analogy, what that other venue was as well, both of them, and how they're analogous to what you're proposing.
Yeah, for sure. They are fantastic little businesses. One is in Kew East and it's called Aura Cafe. I'm not sure if anyone's familiar with the place, but it's been open for maybe since 2010 as a cafe, and then I'm not sure of timeline of when the current operator opened for evening service, but he has quite a nice menu. I haven't been there for dinner, but I just know that he does this. I've been to Fordham Milk Bar for dinner, but it's like, it adds to the amenity with Aura, it adds to the amenity of the area. It's great having that as an option. It's probably more built up because it's in amongst that Kew East shops, but there are houses right next to Aura Cafe. So it's also, hugely residential, and it seems to work. I'm unaware of what the neighbours, whether they think it's good or bad, but they don't open for too late. And I see that as a really good opportunity for me to do the same. And Fordham Milk Bar is exactly the same. It was I remember that site when there was just vacant shops and there was nothing there, and they opened this great cafe and it was a huge success with all of the locals, and then for them to open at night time, and that's also proving to be a success too. That's exactly what I'm after for Barton.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. I just note that I might have further questions, but they'd be contingent on hearing what objectors to the or persons supporting the council officer's recommendation might have to say. So I don't know how we might handle that, but I'll raise that at the time.
That'll be fine. Thank you. Councillor Ibuki.
My question might be similar to what Councillor Franco is saying, in that I was going to refer to some of the objectors who have talked about unreasonable noise, the potential for antisocial behaviour and disruption to the local area. So I wonder, Mr Lasky, if you could comment on whether you have experienced any of those and what strategies or mitigations you think you might have to manage those potential problems.
Thanks for the question. I think that, I guess, like when you sit and do the liquor licensing course to be, I guess, like we can talk about it as liquor licensing and then also just the current, like the cafe trade. But with liquor licensing, they teach you exactly what you, like you get the training from them to become a good license holder. And so I believe, and like I said before, I've had a liquor license in my name since 2010, and I've had a clean slate. I've always, antisocial behaviour is not on. It's also a cafe and restaurant liquor license, so you have to serve a drink with food. As I've said in the past to a few, even like objectors and not objectors, since having the liquor license at the cafe, it's really not much of a money maker. Like not many, it might, 2 or 3 weeks might go by without someone having a single drop. I think people also just generally drink a lot less these days. I feel like those heaps normal non-alcoholic beers would probably be quite popular. And I feel like because it is a family environment, you don't, like even we're a bit funny with alcohol at home, you don't really want kids to be around that, I think. And so, you know, like it would predominantly be for food. There's the bar up the road, which is Gibson's. There's the pub, the Elgin. So if you want that, go there. Pub, go there. But if you want food, and I feel like we have a really good menu, daytime menu, and I'd love to do that at night time. And I feel like if someone wants a drink, well then so be it. Have a drink, a glass of wine with the meal. But antisocial behaviour is not on. I've got a very good relationship with the local police. I've got their number that I can just speed dial, and it goes through direct, and they would come down. But of course, like, you know, I've never had to deal with anything like that with the cafe and restaurant liquor license, nor have I done that regardless of liquor license. I think everyone who lives in the neighbourhood is very respectful of other neighbours, and it is open 7 days, so you are going to have some testing times, such as the morning cyclist trade or, you know, at times, but really at the moment, come 3 o'clock, it's even when it is busy, it can be, every seat outside can be occupied, but still feel very calm outside and not noisy. So that's the environment that we're trying to create.
Councillor Friend Pereira.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Mr. Lasky. Just if I can, want to pick up on a couple of things in the existing permit and just to understand how you're operating currently vis-a-vis what you're seeking plus officers' recommendations. So just to clarify, under the current permit, your delivery window is 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. Monday to Friday, 9 a.m. to 10 p.m. Saturdays and public holidays. What I've heard is that you're actually only taking deliveries between 9 a.m. and 3 p.m. Mondays to Fridays. So is that correct? You're like well within those operating windows for deliveries?
Yeah, there are so many different suppliers, and some suppliers stop and then others start. It's like a seasonal menu, and things change. We've got our set people, and pretty much every account that we create with a supplier, we explain what time, this is our permit guidelines, and this is the time that you're allowed to deliver. We have had issues with our bin, our waste. We have a waste management. When initially back in 2017, when I applied for the cafe permit, we had to get a waste management proposal by a third party, and they put in place, this is how many bins you need, this is the bin wash area, and this is how many times the collection needs to take place throughout the week. And we did have a problem with, I won't name names of the bin provider, but they were coming too early. But then we've now got an issue with the current bin, the waste management place, and they keep coming a little bit too early. So we're looking to change, because we want to just, we want to have like a positive impact, not a negative impact. So we're assessing problems and changing it, and we're proactive.
And thank you. Anticipated my second question was how you manage your waste management plan, and you've spoken to that a little bit. Under the existing permit, there was an obligation to undertake an acoustic report to assess emissions of noise and noise attenuation measures. How would you feel about such a condition being placed on this permit with extended hours if that was the will of council?
Yeah, with the initial permit application back in 2017, 2018, we had an extensive acoustic report prepared, and they put in place what needed to happen, and we satisfied all of that. But definitely, I spoke to the same guy this morning who did the acoustic report, and he said that if it was to be granted that we could do evenings, that could definitely be a part of it, that we have to get an acoustic report and satisfy all of that criteria.
Wonderful. Okay, thank you very much.
Councillor Tawney.
Thanks very much, James. I'm going to stay on the noise theme. If council was to approve this tonight, again, I think it's that, from what I've read from the objections, one of the key issues around noise is the 10 p.m. Kind of what happens after that period.
Yep.
That the restaurant staff are packing up and chucking bottles in bins outside and things like that. Could you just talk to what you'd put in place, that if this was granted, that you could reassure council and the residents
Definitely.
about that?
Thanks for the question. I've been playing, I guess the reason why I just explained in my speech, like the vision that I have, I've also done that with what the staff would look like, if I was working there, what would happen, down to the sort of half hour. And you're exactly right with the pack up. We used to live not far from a pub, and you would hear all those bottles. You knew it was the end of the night. And so I've been sort of playing that out through what it would actually look like. And I think that we would need to come up with some sort of plan in place that minimises any impact. And look, we're fair, reasonable, like I've said, even if it was suggested that we close a little bit earlier, like 9:30, and then we've got that half hour or something. But working with the liquor licensing and everything from 10 p.m, that's where all of the liquor licensing, it sort of changes a little bit. But anything pre 10 p.m. for something like this, liquor licensing is fine for us to operate. But us, I guess, wanting to work with everyone, but maybe we reduce it a little bit and put in place something that minimises that glass or the sort of the waste situation. And also, I think that there would have to be lots of signage in place that would, say, just respect the neighbour's privacy and keep it, you know, if all patrons can leave in like a calm, sort of orderly, you know, fashion after dinner, after the dinner service, whether that's 9 o'clock or 9:30 or something. Yeah, I think that would be, you know, like something that we'd be open to.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Councillor Nolan.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Mr. Lasky. You mentioned an important point about the service of food with alcohol. I think it's something, I just wanted to explore that a bit more. I want to clearly understand that aspect of running the business that you're proposing, or the extension that we're proposing, or you're proposing. If someone wants to order an alcoholic drink, came in, said, can I get a glass of wine, and didn't order food, what would be the situation? How would that play out?
You're like predominant, thanks for the question. I think the predominant business needs to be, I think it's like 75% or 80% of people have to be seated and have a meal that can come with a glass of wine or a beer. So you've got to have 75 or 80% of people dining. So yeah, that's my understanding of the cafe and restaurant liquor licence.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Chair, with your
Bren Pereira,
with your indulgence, there is one question I forgot to ask. I've been getting through all the documents and I feel I've either imagined something, so I'm hoping, Mr. Lasky, you might be able to clarify for me. I have a feeling, and I can't locate it in the documents now, that there was a suggestion that the dinner service would actually finish at 8 p.m. and allow a 2-hour wind down, so it wouldn't be that you were serving meals till 10 p.m. Have I imagined that, or was that something?
No, it was definitely something that we said, and really, if it was open, even if it was open just for summer, let's say, I don't know, I'm just sort of waffling on, but just to actually think about the area, and if we were open for trade, I feel like it would be busy at 5, 6 o'clock, lots of kids, families, cool. Maybe 7, 7:30, people are leaving. It's predominantly for dinner and food. And, you know, like, we still need to set up for the cafe in the morning. I think the thing that I haven't said until now is the main, our main kind of, like, we don't want to forget what the cafe is. The cafe, we've built it up over 6 years. It's the breakfast and lunch. That's what we do. This is just like an extra little addition, like an add-on. Whether it is just summertime that we do this, we're not sure. But to allow us in the permit to be able to do that is, you know, like, I think that's, it's not asking too much, but we still would need to maybe get dinner, even if dinner service was over at 8:30, and then we set up for the next day, clean the place. We don't want to, like, we don't really want people dining there at sort of any time after that, because then they're there and they're in the cafe until after that. Yep. So, yeah, maybe it is beneficial to, like, reduce or have that as a planning condition.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Or, you know, just add a few conditions in, and we need to, you know, work within those guidelines.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lasky. That seems to have exhausted questions. I presume you'll be hanging around for a little while because, as foreshadowed, there may be some questions that come up later.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Thanks very much. I now call upon Michael Rosin. Mr. Rosin, as with the previous speakers, if I can ask you to commence with your position, just to clarify, for or against extended trading hours.
Opposition, Dr. Michael Rosin, East Hawthorn.
Thank you.
Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak on this very important topic. We seek to minimise adverse amenity impacts from non-residential uses on surrounding residential properties. At a recent council meeting, Councillor Hollingsworth said in part, "Council knows how to respect, conserve, retain sympathetic elements of neighbourhood character, including highly valued heritage overlay precincts without compromise." The proposed change isn't needed, wanted, or desirable. The Urban Planning Delegated Committee has sent out a booklet scorning the concept. We know the change is not needed. If one is so inclined, one can already take a gentle 10-minute stroll down to the highly regarded Elgin Inn and Gibson's Wine Bar, which are both on Burwood Road in the commercial hub. There are other non-alcohol providing places nearby. We know it's also not wanted. 6 times as many objections to the proposal were presented to the Urban Committee within the allotted time compared to notices of support. The support, laughably, was for more vitality and lights at night. So much for maintaining a quiet residential area. Further, we know it's not desirable. The Urban Planning Delegated Committee make it very clear that the amenity of the area will be greatly harmed. The quality of living in the surrounding area to 39 Barton Street is mirrored by the sensitivities to the area. What is sensitive? Across the road, a mere stone's throw away in the church hall, there is a weekly nighttime Alcoholics Anonymous meeting. On a cold wintry night, the hall door is wide open and bright light from the hall shines through. That's sensitive. Specifically, my daughter and her 1-year-old baby live in the adjoining house, 37 Barton Street, which I own, there being a party wall to the cafe. She's lived in that house for 18 years. The cafe was originally a local milk bar, as you know. You can imagine the dismay my daughter is suffering with the concept that there is to be further development of the cafe, certain to be detrimental to her. Already she's had to ring the owner on multiple occasions to point out the noise occurring outside of the allotted times. In the June-July Burundara Bulletin sent to the many thousands of homes in the region, our Mayor, Sophie Tawney,
Dr. Rosen, can I get you to move towards wrapping up? Thank you.
Has editorialised in part also about protecting neighbourhood character. We do care for our area. Others will detail more of the diminished quality of life issues already present and certain to be worsened. Thank you for listening to me.
Thank you. Councillors, are there any questions of this speaker? There are none. Thank you for your presentation. I now call upon Courtney Irvine to come forward and join us. Thank you.
Good evening, councillors. Thank you. Courtney Irvine. I live on Denham Street in Hawthorn.
And you're against the extended hours?
I am.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. So my name's Courtney. Thank you for having me this evening. I live at 65 Denham Street, and while I've submitted my own objection to this proposal, tonight I'm speaking on behalf of my friend and neighbour, Sally Rosen. Sally lives with her partner Neil and their 12-month-old baby at 37 Barton Street, directly next door to Barton Cafe, sharing a party wall with the business. This process has taken such an emotional toll on Sally, so she isn't able to speak tonight, but she still wants to have her concerns be heard, so she's asked me to present these words for her. Sally's lived at 37 Barton Street for 18 years and is now raising her young family there. Since Barton Cafe opened, the quiet enjoyment of their home has been disrupted by daily noise, coffee machines, banging, kitchen prep, music, furniture moving and customer conversations all coming straight through the party wall, commencing very early each day. If evening trade is approved for this business, this noise would continue right throughout the day until, as we heard, potentially at least 10:30 p.m, 3 nights per week, and will only be made worse with the inevitable alcohol consumption by patrons. The cafe has already held private evening functions prior to applying for this permit, giving Sally and Neil a glimpse into what regular night trade would mean. Significant noise from loud alcohol-affected patrons filtering through the party wall, and then those same patrons gathering excitedly to talk directly outside their home as they say goodbye. And this is right where their baby sleeps. It is intrusive and completely unacceptable in a quiet residential street. This cafe is already a very successful business, and Sally and Neil have never raised any unreasonable objections to it. But there's no need for the business to become a late night venue, especially not next door to a family home where a baby sleeps just metres from the entrance. There are already plenty of suitable dining venues nearby in specifically established commercial zones. These proposed changes are clearly about commercial expansion, fundamentally changing the cafe's purpose, all disguised as a permit amendment, and have never had any consultation or consideration with the people who will be most affected, and that's those that are living right next door. Sally, along with 20 other residents, myself included, originally objected to this proposal, hoping that the cafe's owners would listen to the local community's concerns. When the proposal was withdrawn in April, we believed these concerns had been heard, but now it's back here before council, repackaged with some workarounds, and still no consultation with the neighbours it directly affects. Sally just asks you to put yourself in her shoes. You've lived in your home for 18 years, and you're now raising a family in that home. And the cafe that you share a wall with, which was once just a nice quiet milk bar, wants to open late at night, just metres from where your baby sleeps. How would you feel? On behalf of Sally, Neil, their baby, and other local residents who are in the immediate vicinity of Barton, I urge you to please reject this application. This is not the place for late night dining. This is a family home.
Thank you. Councillors, are there any questions? Councillor Friend Pereira.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Ms. Irvine. Am I to take from the passion of Sally's words that there's no mitigations that can be put in place that would make it acceptable, whether that be a variation to the hours being sought or acoustic modifications to deal with the shared wall?
It's difficult for me to answer those questions on Sally's behalf. I understand some acoustic work has been done in the past, but I also believe that report hasn't been provided to Sally and her family. But it is absolutely the late night evening trade which is going to affect the family, but also the early morning change as well, as staff are already opening, sort of half an hour before trade is due to commence.
Councillor Pattis.
Thank you, through you, Chair. Am I to understand that the baby that you talk about, the problem is that 10 p.m, like the baby goes to sleep before 10 p.m? Is that? I just want to be more specific about how your amenity will be affected.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's the general noise, of course, but yes, the baby's sleeping directly at the front of the house. And right outside that is where patrons would be gathering to say goodbye. And there is significant noise.
Sorry,
there.
what time? Yeah, I specifically want to know what time the baby goes to sleep.
Sure, it's not my baby, I have to say, but I imagine she's asleep at 6:30, 7 p.m. of an evening.
Thank you.
Thank you. That seems to have exhausted questions. Thank you, Ms. Irvine.
Thank you.
Craig Jeffries.
Good evening, councillors. I am opposing the extension of opening hours in the cafe. My name is Craig Jeffries and I live just 2 doors down from Barton Cafe. I've been a Barton Street resident for over 25 years. My 3 young sons sleep in the front rooms of our home, which are less than 10 metres from the entrance of the cafe. Already they're frequently woken up on weekends by early morning noise from staff setup and patrons. Extended operating hours into the evening and including alcohol and music will only worsen this. We don't even keep alcohol in our own home. We're conscious of the example we set Yet now we may face the reality of a bar operating just meters away from where our children sleep. While we understand the applicant claims this will be a dinner-focused venue, he has already told locals the kitchen will close at 8, meaning it will primarily function as a wine bar, not a restaurant, particularly between 8 and 10 o'clock at night. It keeps being referred to actually by the locals as a cosy wine bar, not as a dinner venue. Let's not forget that when the venue first opened and approved as a cafe, it had no outdoor seating and was to serve salads and healthy foods only. The owner also promised no liquor license. Since then, the cafe has expanded to over 50 outdoor seats, gained a daytime liquor license, and now wants evening trade, despite repeated assurances to the contrary. As neighbours, we've been tolerant of gradual change, but evolution can't come at the cost of our family's well-being and public safety. We didn't move to Richmond or South Yarra. We chose Hawthorne, a residential zone, to raise our children in a quiet, safe environment. Within 500 metres of this site are a school, a kindergarten, a creche, and a Baptist church that hosts Alcoholic Anonymous meetings. These are located away from bars for obvious reasons. Late night noise, people loitering for Ubers at 11 p.m, and glass bottle bins being emptied as early at 5:30 in the morning, which is what's happening at the moment. These are not minor concerns when you're trying to raise a family in a residential zoned area. Let's also be clear, James is not offering anything new that the community doesn't already have within a 5-minute walk. There are 12 businesses on Church Road and Burwood Road which offer exactly the same offering that James is proposing. A further 5 minutes walk down there is Ferry Road, which you have 24 venues that you can choose as a local resident. For councillors to vote against the recommendation of your own planning officers who have undertaken a thorough 6-month investigation, which included 24 objections and only 3 letters of support, which I may add, one of them was from somebody who lived in Marvel Stadium or nearby, just so somebody doesn't have to walk an extra 5 minutes for a glass of wine. And let's be honest, if this is truly a community-driven application, why didn't James Lasky inform us immediate neighbours before applying? We found out through a council notice, not from James. An article in The Age written 2 days ago by a journalist working closely with James was one-sided and ignored our valid concerns. One of the few quoted supporters was Ted Bailey, who lives over a kilometre away and won't be hear a thing or be negatively impacted. Ironically, an online poll attached to that same article shows nearly 70% of people oppose the extended hours, with over 6,000 votes. I think that shows what the general community feel about wine bars and bars opening in residential areas.
Would you mind winding up to, thank you.
Lastly, parking is already a major issue. My wife is regularly abused just for pointing out permit-only zones to cafe patrons. We often park around the corner and carry shopping and kids back home. Evening trade will only make this worse, especially if customers drink and leave their cars overnight. The area is barely patrolled. We're left to report violations ourselves. If councillors approve this application, despite clear residential opposition and sound officer recommendation to refuse it, we will have no hesitation in escalating the matter further to an independent review body, including VCAT.
Thank you, Mr.
I think if we were all honest with yourselves, nobody in this room would choose to live next door to a wine bar.
Thank you. Councillor Hollingsworth.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Mr. Jeffries, for your presentation. You mentioned 5:30 in the morning. Was it waste collection that you said was disturbing you?
The bins have been coming, it ranges from 5:30 in the morning to 6:30. I think James actually mentioned himself that there was issues with the bins, and that is just from cafe waste. Now, when you throw in an evening wine bar with that, and I think the noise there would be, there are children sleeping 10 metres away from there. This is a residential zone, it's not a commercial zone. You know, there's so many businesses located in a commercial zone. And also the roundabout that we're talking about there, in your own bulletin here, $130,000 for the Australian Government Black Spot Programme to improve safety at a high-risk roundabout where Denham Street and Barton Street meet. So now we're proposing that we add alcohol to an outbound area next to a roundabout that has already been pointed out by yourselves as being a black spot area.
Is that the councillor wraparound that you're reading from the ward councillor?
Yeah,
Thank you. Yeah, and it's actually on the back page
it's on the back there.
Yeah,
Road safety upgrades in Hawthorne.
Thank you. And if I may, just one final question. You talked about you already have parking restrictions within the street. Do the restrictions finish at around 6 p.m. or 6:30?
No, it's a permit zone for the streets around there because there's no off-street parking there. So it's permit zone through the evenings as well. But unfortunately, obviously the parking inspectors are stretched throughout the whole of Burundara, so it's very hard to get anybody there regularly to actually monitor the parking. So we are forced to ring ourselves. And even though the council do their best to send somebody around, a lot of times it's many hours later or not at all, understandably.
Thank you.
Councillor Pattis.
Thank you, Chair. Through you. The Speaker mentioned he had 3 children, I think. And I think he talked about noise amenity, but my experience has been that the children wake up a lot earlier than adults. So just wanted to understand how this application will impact his amenity specifically, rather than sort of more general comments. If he could please just explain the impact on his children in the morning.
Well, I think the impact is that the cafe is 10 metres away from where my children sleep. So the congregation outside with people waiting for Ubers, and it's, even though it says 10 o'clock a licence, by the time people finish drinking and leave and untidy up, it's going to be 11:30. You know, already there's sometimes the music gets left on in the cafe overnight and you can hear it from Sally's house next door. So there is, and also the antisocial behaviour. We've all seen what happens outside licensed venues, or can happen. And I do understand that James would try his hardest to make sure that doesn't happen, but he cannot guarantee when alcohol is thrown in the mix that there wouldn't be issues and public disorder issues directly outside my home.
Did that answer your question, Councillor Pattis? I believed it was a morning question.
One more. Yeah, it was specifically, I think the Speaker started off by saying that there was going to be an impact in the morning with his children, and which is something I don't understand because children tend to get up quite early. I just wanted that to be clarified.
With all due respect, I think children of different ages get up at different times. Same as the question you asked earlier regarding what time does a baby go to sleep. I mean, it's very, very strange questioning in there regarding obviously the weekend in particular, where we encourage our children to have a lie-in. He's now planning to open at 7 o'clock in the morning. So I think that is a major impact on my family.
Thank you.
Okay, one more question, Chair. Would the Speaker be willing to accept some sort of trial period where we could actually see the impact of this in reality?
No, I would not accept that, no. I think a trial period opens the door. It's harder to close the door when it's already been opened by allowing somebody a trial period. And who's there to judge what works in a trial period?
Thank you.
Councillor Osborne-Smith.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks for your presentation. Just regarding parking, I know the area well. Yep. There are, as I recall, numerous car parks up Denham Street heading west. Can you remind me what restrictions, if any, there are on those?
They're all permits on up there. James did have 4 parking spots that were allocated to the business, which have been taken away with the inclusion of the parklet for his business. So the original application asked for an amendment in the amount of parking spots. Since then, he's added 50 seats to the cafe and taken away 4 parking spots.
Sorry, just so if I can circle back to my question, you're saying that all of the car parks, the 90-degree or angled car parking up Denham Street, are permit?
Along the side of the cafe, it's all permit zone there, I'm sure.
Up Denham Street, heading west towards the city?
I'm not sure about the opposite side, but all around Barton Street, the Denham Street next to the cafe, I'm sure the other applicants can confirm that.
I might check that with the officers.
Yep, please check it. But there is parking concerns there. There are parking issues for the area.
And then there's car parks, of course, along St James Park on the east side of the park.
There are around the oval, there are car spots.
And can you recall what restrictions, if any, there are?
There are. It's a time restriction there, but they're not permit zone.
Right, thank you very much.
Councillor Friend Pereira.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Mr. Jeffries. I just want to clarify the concerns you have are anticipating based if the change takes place. So this is the dwell time of people leaving the venue and so forth after 10 o'clock. Would you give any consideration to the permit having a hard finish, i.e. all set up? Basically, the venue must be closed by 10 o'clock, including for staff.
I still think that's too late for a residential zoned area. You know, again, it's talking about selling alcohol in the evening. So whether you're selling alcohol at 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, or 10 o'clock, it's still selling alcohol in an area that...
So is your objection is to the sale of alcohol at those hours?
The sale of alcohol and even the extended operating hours. You know,
and the extended operating hours?
Both. I mean, if James could guarantee that he'd open till 8 o'clock and not sell alcohol, then maybe I would change my stance. But I do not feel that James is opening in the evening for a dinner service. I think he's opening for a wine bar service. And the profitability that comes these days with alcohol over food. You know, James is a businessman and the cafe is doing well, but it's doing well as a cafe, and the area supports the daytime cafe.
And then thank you, just to clarify again, so it's an anticipated concern with both the alcohol and the opening hours changes. And am I understanding correctly, one of your big concerns is the dwell time, the patrons upon exiting the
dwell
venue?
time, the general noise, the music level that goes up. And to be honest, it's more than anticipated. I think it's experience that we know what happens in venues that are turned into alcohol-driven businesses at night time. Even the best promises in the world, you cannot guarantee when you have alcohol in the mix that your patrons will behave perfectly.
All right, thank you.
Councillor Sinfield.
Thank you, Chair. I was going to raise a point of order, but decided to delay my comment in relation to the submitters' comments, which I think are walking a very fine line, putting words in the applicant's mouth, and perhaps a warning should be given.
I think we've finished our presentations for the night, but your comments are noted. Thank you. Mr. Jeffries, that appears to have exhausted questions. If you'd return to the gallery. Thank you very much.
Thank you for hearing me.
Mr. John Bertoli.
Okay, I'm opposing the extended trading hours in line with the Council's report, but also I would like to oppose some of the other features that have been agreed to.
You'd start your presentation. That'd be
okay. My name is John Bortoli. My wife and I, we both lived within 40 metres of the cafe for 40 years. We brought up our 2 kids there, and we were aware of the milk bar at the time. We knew it was there. We always used it. But what we need to remember is the business that's there now is completely different to a milk bar. It's a commercial venture in a residential zone. The average visit time to a milk bar was 3 to 4 minutes while people jumped out of their car, went in and got a loaf of bread or a bottle of milk or something to take home. Only the front room was ever used as a milk bar. The rest of the building was a residence. It never sold alcohol, never sold cooked meals, never had indoor seating or outdoor seating for that matter. The amenity council gave the original permit stating that the amenity of the area must not be adversely affected by the use of the development. Hours of operation were to be between 7 and 4 Monday to Friday and 8 to 4 Saturday and Sunday. No more than 35 patrons at any one time. And at the time, the applicant had said no liquor licence or outdoor seating was being applied for. These were specific requirements by council for him to follow, but from day one, he showed complete disregard of the council's authority and conditions. We have footpath congestion, making the footpath sometimes unusable along Denham Street. Noise and cooking smells. We get this 40 to 50 metres away in our backyard. I ask my neighbours to stop cooking bacon in the mornings, every morning, until I found out that they said it wasn't them, it was coming from the cafe. Car parking in the permit zone along Barton Street. We have cars parking for up to an hour or more while they visit the cafe. We have mothers dropping off children. They park their car in Barton Street. They walk up to the school, come back, go into the cafe and have a coffee. They are there sometimes for over an hour. The parklet takes up to 3 10-minute parking spaces which was specifically put there for the purpose of the milk bar. They were taken away. Late closing time is unwarranted. This is a residential area. The restaurant-style operation in this area is not needed. We don't need, or for that matter, want another Gibson's amongst our homes. 10 o'clock closing is encroaching on sleep hours. It may be acceptable for commercial areas, but not acceptable here. Opening hours are supposed to be 7. We have notices on the window for 6:30 in the morning and menus since day one, and that's what we've had to put up with.
Thank you, Mr. Vitale. Councillors, Councillor Franco.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Mr. Bertoli. You said that you also oppose some other aspects that were recommended in the council officer's report. Can you explicitly identify which ones they are?
The permit was applied for and granted. After the permit was issued, we've had 6:30 openings. We've had illegal buildings going up in the backyard as storerooms built by the applicant. We've had a servery window which was once blocked up, opened up, and a servery ledge being
Excuse
put
me,
in.
Mr. Vitale, this is going back into history. And
I know
Councillor
it
Franco,
is, but it's part of the current application.
Don't think it is. I think you need to stick to the facts
The current
in the
application.
application tonight.
Okay, well, I oppose
Thank you.
everything.
Are there any other questions of this presenter? There are not. Thank you, Mr. Vitale. Michael Hallett.
Good evening. Mike Hallett from Hawthorn. I live one door down from Barton's on Denham Street. Good evening. I'm here tonight as a Denham Street parent with a young family, and as mentioned, live one door down from Barton's on Denham Street. To be clear, my family and I are not against Barton's as a cafe. It's long been part of our lives. My wife and I, we know James and Kat fairly well. We've celebrated milestones at the cafe. It's been our morning routine for years. This isn't about opposing the cafe itself. It's about opposing the evening trade in a very tightly packed residential area. And I do agree with the points that the opposition have been raised tonight. I don't feel I need to repeat what has been shared tonight and what has been shared in prior applications and commentary over the last 8 months. But all I will say is, having reflected on the concept of anticipated impact, I did want to stress that should the extended hours be approved, I would urge Council to ensure that the items that James has outlined here tonight to address some of the concerns raised by the immediate community, which in fairness are all reasonable solutions, are discussed with those residents directly impacted to ensure we can all move forward together as a community. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions? There are none. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry, Councillor Hollingsworth, you snuck in at the last minute. Could I get you to return to the table? Thanks very much. Councillor Hollingsworth.
Thank you, Chair. Sorry for the late minute press of the buzzer. Mr. Elliott, thank you for your presentation. I think I interpret what you've just said is that you acknowledge there's some disruption, some disturbance, but you have a level of satisfaction that those issues can be worked through. Is that correct? Have I understood what you've just said?
You have, in a sense, I think, what I've experienced living in the local area for just over 3 years now in the same property is that there needs to be a lot more communication, as it's been stated here tonight as well, between those residents that are immediately impacted by this and also there needs to be some oversight in terms of ensuring that those things happen. There needs to be regulation within the community to ensure that everyone can move forward together. And I think approaching things in that way would be a start. I'm not saying it's the future, but also we don't really understand what the future may hold. Whilst James has some incredibly strong ideas about how he approach this business, which I am somewhat on board with, we don't know what happens when the property gets sold. We don't know what will happen to the local area. We don't know how everything will escalate based on sort of what James has spoken about tonight. So we're walking a very fine line in terms of understanding, well, things could happen perfectly now, but what happens in the future? And as stated also tonight by some other areas, we're opening a door here. We have to be very conscious of, by opening that door, what we lead ourselves into.
I understand every word you just said and appreciate that, and acknowledge that if there was a will of council to support an application this evening, there would be some very stringent conditions required, I believe, to satisfy residents. But thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Franco, you foreshadowed before that you may have further questions of Mr. Lasky. Is that the case or not? Oh, sorry. I should. Thank you very much. We've exhausted questions of you. Thank you very much, Mr. Hell.
No, I think I've heard enough. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. If I could just say, we've heard from all the presenters this evening, and there was foreshadowed earlier was further correspondence that came through today, even though it wasn't within the objection time. There was a total of 21 emails that on a cursory read appear to be supporting the extension of the hours. There was another one that conditionally supported it and a further one that was against it. So that's just clarifying the numbers of opinions we have. So look, I'll now return, Councillor Tawney. Right, thank you. I'll now return to the officers for comments, thank you.
Through you, Chair. I just had two matters to clarify. The first being, Mr. Lasky mentioned the existing food and drink premises, being the Fordham Milk Bar and Aura in East Kew. Just to clarify that both of those premises are located within the Commercial 1 zone, within which the use of land as a food and drink premises is as of right. There's no planning approval required to use the land as a food and drink premises at either of those locations, compared to the subject site, which is in the neighbourhood residential zone. The second question that we just had a very quick look through Street View, and there are some 2 to 4 hour car spaces within Denham Street and adjacent the park, though not necessarily an area of expertise, but we do acknowledge there are some 2 to 4 hour spaces that are not permit zoned within the vicinity of the site. So just to clarify the Mr. Osborne-Smith question there. And that was all.
Thank you very much. Councillors, do you have any questions you'd like to put to officers now? Oh, Councillor Pattis, I believe you were first.
Thank you, Chair. Through you to officers, if we were of a mind to support the extended hours with whatever conditions we decide, I wanted to understand why in the report the officers didn't recommend a trial, or it seemed like if we wanted to do a 1 year trial, it didn't seem to be something that the officers were recommending. I just want to understand what their view on a trial would be.
Thanks. I might answer that question, and through yourself, Chair. Trial permits has been an approach taken in the past by many planning departments across the industry, or many councils across the industry, and in many situations like this. It is something that has been reviewed and considered by VCAT over the years. They've formed a view that trial permits is not an appropriate way moving forward. It actually does not really put all parties in a position where they fully understand the implications and what happens, behaviours are often different during a trial period, and after that trial period, we're often back confronting a similar decision and a similar consideration. The preferred approach is to form a view on the proposal based on the information before you and to put in place a decision that is considered an appropriate one, having regard to the relevant planning controls and what the expectations might be for that area, rather than trial or temporary permits. As I say, they are not an accepted approach by VCAT, and one that we would not put forward as an appropriate way forward to fully explore this as a consideration.
Thank you.
Councillor Friend Pereira.
Thank you, Chair. A question to officers in two parts, I think. Can officers just explain, for the benefit of councillors and the gallery, how the new planning amendment that came in, I think it was 2.5, oh God, I can't remember the number, as of 8, yes, thank you, as of 1st of July, what on the hours of the liquor licensing, what role council now has in that, and also just outline the process that officers have undertaken with both the applicant and opposers to try and tease out some of these issues in arriving at the recommendation put before us.
Again, through yourself, Chair, I might just answer the first part of that question and then ask Ms Johnson to perhaps add and expand on the second part of your question. The change to the approach to liquor licences is in fact in the context of broader planning reforms. And what the planning reforms consider is a whole range of issues under the planning system, as we know. And one of those is a simplification of the way that planning matters are considered. What we had prior to the change on the 1st of July is a dual system in which a planning permit is needed for a liquor licence that considers hours, an operation, an activity, and patron numbers, which is then followed up by a liquor licensing system in which a liquor licence is then obtained after the planning permit is obtained. And the liquor licence then also considers hours of operation, community impact, patron numbers, and the like. What the state government has done is make a change to the planning system so that a planning permit is not obtained or does need to be obtained, that the liquor licensing is the sole focus for a decision around whether liquor is appropriate, what hours, patron numbers are appropriate under that liquor licence. So it's a simplification of the consideration of a liquor licensing situation. Now, the liquor licensing will go through a public notice process like it did before, in which neighbours can object, and in fact council will be notified of that application, and council has the opportunity to make a comment or object to that process, but from a liquor licensing perspective. The land use activity, however, is still a relevant consideration for the council. So, is it appropriate to have a cafe on this site? What numbers of patrons are appropriate in this cafe? What hours are appropriate in this cafe? So all of those relevant considerations around amenity impacts in a residential area in this situation are still open and relevant considerations for the council. And that is because this is a residential area. This is a neighbourhood residential zone. We need to turn our mind to those issues in deciding this permit. Now that is very, very different to a commercial zone. And we heard some comment and reference to the Aura Cafe and Fordham Cafe and its conversion of those two cafes to nighttime activity and liquor consumption. But that is in the context of those premises being within a commercial zone. In fact, council doesn't have power to control the hours of operation, the numbers of patron, the way that that activity operates because it is a commercial zone. The reason for being for a commercial zone is to support that type of activity and to support a variety of land uses that operate into the evening. That is the very zone that's set up for that. So in that situation, the change in the rules mean that council can't turn its mind to the liquor licence and restricting hours and the like. In the land use sense or the planning permit sense, it's only about then the liquor licensing process. So I hope that gives a little bit of a clarification of what's changed and how now the different system will operate. I don't know whether, Ms. Johnson, you've got anything to add?
Thank you. Councillor Tawney. Sorry,
Excuse me, sorry, there was the second question, but there was nothing to add on that question, but on the second question.
My apologies, through you, Chair. The second part of the question, I understand, was in relation to the role that officers played or in negotiating or exploring other options with the applicant. So in terms of processing, we had 2 rounds of public notice. After the first round of notice, we had a public consultation meeting, a planning consultation meeting, which was attended by around 16 objectors, the applicant and others. Following the consultation, we received an amended application, which removed the evening trade. However, this amendment was followed by a subsequent amendment which put the evening trade back on the table. So in terms of there being opportunity for a revised proposal, that was certainly there after consultation, but through the 2 amendments, we've returned to our originally advertised proposal or thereabouts. I will make note that there was one change made in relation to the weekday commencement, originally proposed for 6:30 a.m. That amendment, which pushed the opening time to 7 a.m, has been sustained or maintained for the weekday trade, but the 7 a.m. opening hours on a weekend has been, that was previously, that's been maintained as well. That makes sense. Yep.
Thank you. Councillor Tawney.
My questions go to if we were to consider granting this permit for extended hours, listening to the residents who are objecting to it around noise and dwelling after hours, 6:30 starts, bottles, sounds being removed. How does that, can we put strict conditions if we were to do this? Is that something we can do, and how are they enforceable, and how does that work?
Thanks for yourself, Chair. Yes, there can be conditions that can be opposed around limitations on what time pack-up would need to be completed by, and certainly conditions around amenity impacts on the surrounding area. Having said that, conditions do need to be enforceable. They do need to be realistic. They do need to be achievable in the context of the type of activity that's being approved. The 2 things can't contradict each other, so it's got to be put in that context, and it's got to be relevant and directly connected and able to be enforced. It is problematic enforcing these sorts of conditions into the evening. It often takes input from neighbours. It often takes observation and ongoing review of how an activity is operating. So they are quite problematic to enforce when they are of that general nature.
Second question, if I may, Chair. Thank you. So, looking at the maps, it looks like this area will be potentially in the next Hawthorn, in the activity centre for Hawthorn, I think within the 400 metres, so in the inner catchment. We don't know where it's going, but if it is, does that change, would that change anything around this application?
Thank you, and through you, Chair. If a different residential zone was applied to this area and this site, there would still be a permit requirement for a non-residential use such as this, a food and drink premises, and the purpose of the zone would be the same in terms of offering only limited opportunities for non-residential uses, and we would still apply our discretionary uses policy in considering a non-residential use. So not really, other than the zone more broadly.
Even with densification probably being part of that zone, you don't see that would be a sort of a changing face of the neighbourhood?
Again, through yourself, Chair, the purpose of the Housing Choice and Transport Zone, which we don't know whether it would apply to this area or not, is really about increased housing and residential activity. It's not about changing land uses for commercial activity or those that would potentially have amenity impacts on a residential area. So yes, there is a change, but it's very much focused on residential housing and increased housing, not on a wider range of activity such as this.
Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Nolan. Yes.
Thank you, Chair, through you. To the officers, thank you. Do we have any cafes or food and drink premises elsewhere in Burundara that are operating in neighbourhood residential zones?
Through yourself, Chair, we're not able to identify any and none have been brought to our attention as part of this application process where they would be in a neighbourhood residential zone with nighttime activity of this extent and alcohol. Having said that, I can't say that there aren't those premises. There may well be. We just haven't identified those and they haven't been brought to our attention through this process. And again, having said that, our recommendation for you this evening is having regard to the purposes of the residential zone. It's not about, and the consideration of the specific components of the residential nature near this premises. It is not about whether there's a precedent elsewhere or not.
Councillor Nolan, you happy with that response?
Yeah, look, I'm not looking for whether there's a precedent. I'm looking to see whether this is the first of its kind in a residential zone, but I think I understand the nuance of the answer. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Councillor Hollingsworth.
Thank you, Chair. I wanted to ask the officers if they're aware of any potential waste management operator that works within hours that might be more conducive to a residential precinct. And I know that's probably an ambiguous question, but is there potentially a permit condition that could stipulate waste collection had to be after 7 a.m, for example?
Thanks, Chair. Yes, there is a condition that is included on the permit that would require a waste management plan to be approved. That could include consideration of the hours that waste is collected. There is the ability for operators to work with their waste collection service and ensure that that occurs in line with that waste plan. So that would be something that would be negotiated and agreed and certainly is enforceable.
Thank you. And if I might just follow up, I know with the local council waste collection, typically that would be done before 7 a.m. in the morning. So with an external contractor, there's not necessarily the same constraints. Right. Thank you.
Councillor Sinfield.
Thank you, Chair. Through you, I have two questions for officers. I'm wondering if the officers might explain the interaction between the EPA and any permit conditions that might be applied to this, should councillors consider approving this with some conditions, as far as noise and other types of pollution.
Happy to Chair, I'm happy to respond to that. The EPA requirements need to be adhered to irrespective of conditions on the permit. In fact, we do not need to include conditions on a permit that would specify or require adherence to EPA requirements. So those noise requirements and their relationship to a residential area would apply in all circumstances.
Thank you. And noting that the word brothel is no longer in the various legislation considered for planning approval these days, should this premises operate as a brothel, would any sort of permit be required? I'm illustrating a point.
That would need to be considered under the planning scheme as it applies. Brothel no longer is a relevant land use requiring a planning permit.
Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Bookie.
Thank you, through you, Chair. If council were to grant an amended planning permit with extended evening hours, what instruments are available to council to revoke that or to force a further amendment if there was a need to do so?
Thank you, and through you, Chair, there really aren't mechanisms available to us to change a permission that we've issued. There is an ability to cancel or amend a permit when there has been an error in law, and it's a very high bar to meet that test at the tribunal. And this goes some way to why trial periods aren't preferred as well.
Chair, I might just add as well, and that's the issue and consideration from a planning permit perspective. There is another element here, and that is the outdoor dining component that has a local law permit. And the local law permits are renewed by council. So the local law permit would also need to be complied with, would also have relevant considerations around amenity and impacts. And if the outdoor dining permit was not being complied with and there were ongoing issues, it is certainly within the scope of council under the local law to remove the outdoor dining permit component. But that's a separate consideration. It would not take away or prevent the business from operating within the land use or within the building under the planning permit, but certainly that's an aspect that council has direct control of and could be taken away.
Okay, that's a very interesting option because it would suggest that if the outdoor dining area was removed, it wouldn't be viable for the business to continue operating in the evening.
That's not something I can comment on.
Yes, no, but that is one action that is available to council to enforce compliance with conditions that try to protect amenity and neighbourhood comfort at night if we were to grant an amended permit to extend hours.
That's correct, but only in relation to the outdoor dining, and any decision around that would need to be relevant to that. So it wouldn't be appropriate for council to withdraw the outdoor dining permit because of activities occurring within the building under the planning permit, for example.
Councillor Franco.
Thank you, Chair. Through you, do we have any standard permit conditions relating to glass bottle handling? And if we have any such standard conditions, is it possible for council to impose such conditions, irrespective of whether or not the extended hours are approved? And I ask this in response to some of the noise issues that have been raised in relation to glass handling. And if we do have such standard conditions, I couldn't find any in the documentation before councillors.
Thanks, Chair. We do not have any standard condition that relates specifically to glass bottles, the use of glass bottles, the collection of them, the disposal of them, the recycling of them. The issues around waste are covered under the waste management plan conditions, including relevant hours for collection and how waste is managed. So it's in a broad condition, not a specific condition about glass recycling or glass activity.
Thank you, and I'll just add to that through you, Chair. There is a specification in the waste management plan that recycling bins within the cafe and taking that to the bin storage area is to occur between 2 and 4 p.m. So there is some effort to manage that particular activity in the endorsements that we have at present.
Okay, and they would continue to be existing and unchanged, irrespective of whether or not council determines a decision in relation to the extended hours.
There's been no explicit request to change that particular requirement, and perhaps that would need to be revisited if the hours are extended, and there could be additional provisions having regard to the evening trade.
Thank you.
Councillor Fred Pereira.
Thank you, Chair. Mr. Walker, you clearly and very nicely sort of explained the application of local laws. Can you just remind me once more, as a new councillor, when it comes to a condition placed in a planning permit, if there is a breach of that condition, what actions can council take?
Again, through yourself, Chair, council has a couple of avenues when there is a breach of a planning permit. Of course, always we work with a permit holder to seek compliance. That's our primary objective. If that compliance cannot be achieved, then the avenues would include issuing of a planning infringement notice, and so they can be issued daily if the breach continues. There is the option of seeking to prosecute via the magistrate's court, so that is also an avenue, which obviously is a punishment for breaches of planning permits. And the third avenue is seeking an enforcement order from VCAT, so from the Victorian Civil and Administrative Tribunal. That enforcement order would be an order to require or a particular compliance with planning controls or planning permits that have been issued. So that would then be enforceable, and any breach of that would be a significant breach of court orders.
Councillor Pattis.
Thank you, through you, Chair. The question I want to ask the officers is whether we could impose a condition to do with that alcohol cannot be served unless a meal is accessible. In other words, that the kitchen can't be closed if alcohol is served. I just worry about this becoming a wine bar, and whether that would be a condition that we could impose as part of the planning permit, and whether it could be enforceable from the point of view of other permits that we have.
Again, through yourself, Chair, and this is an interesting interaction between different controls here. And council has the ability to impose conditions about activities and amenity associated with the business, and we do have some conditions on the planning permit that we do not plan to remove relating to the tables and chairs and the serving of food as a predominant activity at those tables and chairs. Having said that, consideration of liquor licence matters, which is the relationship between alcohol and food, is predominantly a matter for the liquor licensing process. The type of liquor licence, as I understand it, for this type of activity would have a requirement and specification that the predominant activity is serving of alcohol with food, but there is a small component, and I think the reference to 75% food alcohol activity versus 25% alcohol only is a relevant consideration under the liquor licence, and that would be enforceable under the liquor licence. I might just get Ms Johnson to read out the condition within the planning permit that isn't intended to be removed.
Through you, Chair, the existing conditions relate to the predominant activity carried out on the licensed premises must be the preparation and serving of meals for consumption on the licensed premises. And the following condition is that tables and chairs must be placed in position on the licensed premises so as to be available for at least 75% of the patrons attending the premises at any one time to the satisfaction of the responsible authority. Thank you.
Councillor Hollingsworth.
Thank you, Chair. At the appropriate time, I'd like to foreshadow an amended motion.
Thank you. Councillor Franco.
Thank you, Chair. Just returning to the issue of glass handling or recycling, I have, looking at the condition 3 or 4, depending on which document in relation to the waste management plan, it doesn't specify a 2 to 4, 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. issue. It's silent on that matter, and I just ask if council officers can explain how that works.
Yeah, thank you, and through you, Chair, that specification is the document that was submitted in response to that condition. So it was not something that was requested, but something offered in that documentation, put to us and endorsed as part of the planning permit.
Thank you. And in relation to that, is that something that the applicant can simply walk away from, or is that somehow tied to the condition? And can it be, or would it be strengthened if we put it into a permit condition?
It continues to have force and effect, and you could seek modifications to the waste management plan.
Modifications through amending the planning permit, or modifications through the applicant bringing forth alternate proposals?
It could be either, but ultimately there would need to be a condition seeking that change to that document.
Thank you.
Councillor Osborne-Smith.
Thank you, Chair. Through you. I would like the officers, if you could please, to explain how the liquor licensing process works, what typical issues would be considered as part of that application, and perhaps if you'd care to make any comments on the likelihood or not of such an application succeeding in this case for what has been sought.
Chair, perhaps I make some comment on that, and perhaps I did reference this earlier. We are under a new regime. So this is new ground where the Liquor Licensing Commission, or in fact, what's it called these days? The Liquor Control Victoria, sorry, they change their names from time to time. I go back a long way. Liquor Control Victoria will need to turn its mind to relevant licensing considerations, but without the prior consideration of a planning permit that specifically turned its mind to liquor activity. So they will be now making these decisions as the primary body for liquor matters rather than it being subsequent to the prior consideration from a planning point of view. Issues around social and amenity impact and the appropriateness of alcohol in that sort of environment are relevant considerations. So hours, patron numbers and behaviours and those sorts of matters are relevant considerations. And also the social element of whether there's a saturation or oversupply of liquor to that location that might have a detrimental impact on the community are relevant considerations. In this situation, I don't think that would be something that would be of primary concern, but certainly those other issues that I mentioned around hours, patrons, appropriateness of alcohol would be relevant considerations. There is an ability for residents to object to that liquor licence application through the Liquor Licensing Commission, and they will need to make those decisions. I do stress this is something that we are not the responsible authority for, so my comments need to be in that context. They are not actually giving guidance from a liquor licensing perspective or how the liquor considerations will be given specifically.
That appears to have exhausted questions from councillors. No last minute bids. Thank you, councillors. Thank you, officers. We've now reached the time where I'll be in search of a motion. Councillor Hollingsworth, you indicated that you had a proposed motion.
Thank you, Chair. I just sent a brief message to the Manager of Governance, just seeking that some words be put together, and when Governance has time to put the proposed sorry, I was hoping...
They're going to take a minute to do that.
Yes.
If I could have a motion... Sorry?
To adjourn?
Could I suggest an adjournment motion?
I was going to suggest, did you beat me to, or are you mind reading again tonight, Councillor?
I think that might be needed to just take a moment to prepare the wording and compare the condition and clause numbers.
Precisely. Thank you very much for that. Do we have a seconder for that motion? Councillor Hollingsworth?
Thank you.
All in support?
Very happy to second. Thank you.
The meeting is adjourned. Councillors, would you please resume your seats? I'm in search of a motion to reconvene the meeting. Councillor Sinfield.
So moved.
Do I have a seconder? Councillor Rabuki.
So seconded.
All in support? The meeting is resumed. The motion to those in the gallery tonight, there's been quite a number of, we've listened closely to what all have said, and there's a lot of issues that have been raised that we hadn't totally foreseen necessarily. So what's been happening, as you might well guess, is a councillor is prepared to move a motion, but we had to agree and draft the words of that. We now have a motion to put forward. So I'll now return to Councillor Hollingsworth for the movement of that motion. Thank you very much. Councillor, take it away.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to everyone that's constructed what's before us. The motion that I proposed to move was Thursday to Saturday, 7 a.m. to 9 p.m, not 10 p.m. Thank you. And I can see the noise levels have been considered as a condition, and a condition with regard to, waste collection. I'm not seeing where that's been acknowledged. Times of waste collection.
Maybe a waste management plan?
Waste management, yes, but times of collection of waste to be after 7 a.m.
Perhaps if I can just clarify through you, Chair, that there are already conditions requiring waste collection between, I believe it's 7 a.m. and 8 p.m, so that's an existing requirement on the permit, which the recommendation before you does not seek to alter that.
So if I could just ask the question, how does Council have better control of trying to enforce that? Because we've heard from the community tonight that sadly that's not working. Could that be a strengthened condition?
Again, through yourself, Chair, if this is an ongoing issue, that's certainly something that council officers would need to ensure they put in place review, monitoring and actions to enforce the existing conditions. So changing the condition won't necessarily change the behaviour if there's non-compliance. That's an enforcement matter that we will need to take up in a concerted way.
Thank you. And is there a way that could be captured in this motion to include?
Again, through yourself, Chair, that's something that we will need to take on board. There's no need to include that specifically in a motion.
Thank you.
Through yourself, Chair, a second aspect to amenity impacts with waste is the internal movement of bottles from inside to the waste store within the site. And the second last point there seeks to deal with that particular activity, and as it's listed, gives an hour after the 9 o'clock close for those activities to occur.
Yeah, and that would be an absolute maximum must be on or before that time. Thank you, appreciate that. So, look, yes, that is my motion.
That is your motion.
Thank you.
Has everyone... That's right. Has everyone had time to read that? So I'm now in search of a seconder for the motion as it appears on the screen. Councillor Franco.
I'm happy to second the motion.
Thank you. Yep, that's right. Is there any councillor opposed to the motion as it currently stands?
Yes, Chair.
Well, I've got three, so he can go to. Councillor Sinfield, I think you got in first.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I am opposed to the motion on the screen, and I'm just contemplating whether moving an amendment to the motion or in fact letting this play out might be the cleanest way of dealing with this. So I think I'll opt for the latter at the moment and foreshadow that should this fail, I have an alternate motion which is reverting to what was on screen a few minutes ago.
So revert to you, Councillor Hollingsworth. Do you wish to speak to your motion?
Thank you, Chair. The motion in front of us now I have constructed because I acknowledge that this cafe, albeit very successful and popular cafe restaurant, is in a neighbourhood residential zone. There have been quite a few members of the community that have spoke this evening, expressed concerns about the noise into their households, and particularly where there's young families. Now, I know circumstances change, and we've debated a lot tonight about sleep patterns, and it's very difficult to put time constraints on what is deemed to be disruption and whatnot. But because it is a neighbourhood residential area, then residential properties are very close to it, I believe that this is a good compromise for the 3 nights a week that the restaurant is proposed to be open. I believe most meals could be served before 8 p.m. People could sit, have a final drink and depart from the building by 9. That would give the operators time to clean, pack up and exit the building by 10 p.m. without any disruption to the neighbourhood. So I think a 9 p.m. close is good, giving the proprietors the opportunity to then clean up, and that, I believe, is a balanced proposal that benefits the applicant, the community and visitors to the area. I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Councillor Pattis has requested to put an amendment to the motion, and I've been advised that I need to, before we move forward, to let Councillor Pattis speak to that amendment.
Thank you, Chair. I may be overriding Councillor Sinfield's request, but I'm going to vote against this on the basis that I'd like My amendment is that we change the 9 p.m. to 10 p.m. That's the only amendment.
Is there, Councillor, well, I'll ask Councillor Hollingsworth first. Are you prepared to accept that?
No, thank you, Chair.
All right, so Councillor Pattis, you're proposing an amended motion. Have you got a seconder for that amended motion? Councillor Osborne-Smith.
Yes, happy to second that motion.
Okay, so that becomes the substantive motion. Is anyone opposed to this amendment? Okay. Councillor Pattis, can you speak? Are you ready to speak to your motion at this point in time?
I'd like to reserve my right, Chair, if I could.
No. If you're the mover, we require you to start.
Okay, all right, I'll speak to it then. I think the motion before us is appropriate because the applicant was willing to accept conditions. We've imposed conditions with this amendment. We need to also take into account that this is a venue that has been in the local community and has served the local community and is beneficial for the local community. And they won't be serving alcohol without the presence of food. That was my biggest concern, that we don't want alcohol to be served without the presence of food. And in this case, that will allow that. I think 10 p.m. is appropriate because it gives the applicant sufficient time to wrap up and to then be able to not impact on the amenity of the local residents after 10 p.m. Thank you.
Councillor Osborne-Smith, do you wish to speak at this time?
I'll reserve my right, thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other councillors that wish to speak at this point in time? Councillor Tawney.
Thank you, Chair, and through you, Chair. I want to begin by thanking the residents, all who have written, made submissions and engaged on this topic. The strength of the views of both sides just reflects how much this decision matters to the community. Whichever side you're on, your opinion is highly valued, and we really appreciate you coming to talk tonight and being part of this conversation. I'm satisfied with the officer's recommendations on most aspects of this application. However, I agree with this motion here on the extended trading hours. You know, Hawthorn is one of the designated activity centres, so we are expecting increased densification, and the way we're living generally is changing. More people living closer together, and the importance of walkable local places, as we heard from some of the residents tonight. Cafes and restaurants where people can gather, really that is just growing. And Barton Cafe, from all the feedback, has clearly become one of those third places. It's more than just food and coffee and wine. It's offering this sense of connection and belonging. And we've heard tonight about the passion of many community members have about this place and the importance it gives to the families for local accessible options for meals. And seeing the local community whipping into action with so many people signing a petition, so many of them local. I counted over 145 from Hawthorn and, you know, so many in the streets surrounding. But I do want to acknowledge the concerns raised by the nearby residents, particularly around noise and late night behaviour. And they're really legitimate concerns, and we need to manage those carefully. But for me, it's really clear this isn't a nightclub. It's a small local cafe seeking to open 3 nights a week until 10 p.m. So balancing residential amenity with the needs of a growing urban centre, it's not always easy. And not everyone's going to be happy with whatever decision is made tonight. But I believe we can support Barton Cafe as a valued part of our local community while protecting those living nearby. So for those reasons, I will be supporting the application with these amended hours. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Does anyone else want to speak at this point in time? No. That's fine. Councillor Hollingsworth.
Thank you, Chair. Look, it appears I'm the only person in opposition, so to close out the debate, I just wanted to make comments to reiterate that I concur with Mayor Tawney. Barton's Cafe is an iconic landmark, highly valued by local community and patrons, whether they live close or whether they visit. But I believe the motion I put forward was a balanced compromise by closing at 9 p.m, still allowing the cafe restaurant to continue operations, build the brand, cater to the local community, but just close at a more considered time that's respectful of the abutting neighbours. So I will make my point clear that I don't support this option here, but I trust my councillor colleagues will vote accordingly.
Councillor Franco.
Yes, just speaking to the amendment, and I'll speak later to the motion, but I did support Councillor Hollingsworth's motion, but I will be supporting the amendment that Councillor Pattis has put forward on balance, and I'll speak again to the substantive motion at the appropriate time.
Councillor Osborne-Smith, returning to you, do you want to now speak?
Yes, just a few words, if I may, Chair. Thank you very much. And I'd like to reiterate the words of Mayor Tawney. Decisions like this are a delicate balance between residents, those that live nearby and that are genuinely affected. And I do feel for those residents who have grown up with a quiet milk bar and live nearby and are witnessing an evolving use of this space. But we must balance that against those residents that are guests of this well-known establishment and enjoy the simple pleasures of an early coffee in the morning or a glass of wine with a meal. So in simple terms, I wanted to say that our neighbourhoods are our daily and our weekly life. And whilst we may turn our minds to the issues of our city or our country or our world, the reality is our day-to-day life is usually one of very simple, routine pleasures. And for many of us, this includes a coffee early in the morning or a simple meal out in the evening with family or friends and a glass of wine or a beer. So for that reason and others, I am supporting the motion on screen today. I would also simply note that I don't accept many of the concerns raised about traffic congestion, about unruly antisocial behaviour and the like. I do accept that this proposal is modest in its ambition. It is measured. It has satisfactory conditions that can ensure compliance, and that it is certainly well supported by the vast majority of residents with a great deal of passion for this business. And I'll conclude by noting that Condition 8 requires a closeout of activities by 10 p.m. So to that extent, we're not talking about staff cleaning up after 10, staff having a closeout drink behind the counter after 10. All activities must cease by 10 p.m. I would suggest that may end up meaning the last drinks and meals are served well before 10 p.m. in order to complete that activity. And I think that's a reasonable compromise in the circumstances. So I'll be supporting this motion, and I would encourage my fellow councillors to do likewise. Thank you very much.
Councillor Bookie.
Thank you. I just wanted to say briefly that, Mr. Lasky, we have listened to a lot of people who have talked to us about the value and the regard that they hold your cafe in. We've also heard from a lot of people who've been very legitimately worried about the potential disruption to their lives, to their comfort, to their families. So I would just like to say to you that, we've given you an amended planning permit. We hope you use it wisely. Sorry, we're hoping to. We are considering giving you a planning permit, and we hope that, we hope that if that is the case, then you'll be using it wisely. It's been a very difficult decision for us to make. I'd like to think, though, that what we do is we try to believe the best in our community and in our people, and we hope that places like this build community. And I've grown up with young children. I've always been very happy about walking to neighbourhood places, about the enrichment that it gives me in seeing people who I live with in the places that I enjoy within walking distance. So I'll be supporting the motion, and I urge my fellow councillors to do the same. Thank you.
We will now return to Councillor Pattis to close out debate with regard to the amendment.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to just say that I grew up for many years on top of a shop, and you just learn to live with any negative impacts, but also there are many, many positive impacts of living so close to a place where you can grab a meal and have a drink. So my colleagues have put it very eloquently and have addressed, I think, on balance, a very good motion. I'll leave it at that, Chair.
Thank you very much. I will now seek your support. Those in support of the amendment, which was the simple change within clause 6 from 9 o'clock to 10 o'clock. Those in support of that amendment, now show your hands. Those against? Thank you. The amendment is carried. We will now move to the motion. Do we have a mover for the motion? So we're assuming Councillor Pattis, it becomes your motion. Do you wish to speak further to the motion?
No, thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Osborne-Smith, do you want to maintain your position as the seconder?
Yes, thank you, Chair.
That'd be great. Do you wish to speak to it?
No.
I think it's well and truly covered. Thank you. Councillor Franco.
Thank you. I'd like to speak to the motion, Chair. It's a difficult decision. A number of my colleagues have already addressed the points that I would have made, so I won't repeat those. I think there's a balance to be made, and I think in the context, taking into account all the issues, this is the most appropriate decision to be made. I recognise it is in a residential zone, but I think it's a low-key use, and I think we've got some conditions to try and address any of the potential amenity concerns. And I think some of the amenity concerns like transport and traffic are not as relevant in this context, but I do understand that some of the issues that have been raised do concern me about noise and waste management, recycling, etc. So I have confidence that our officers will look diligently at the waste management plan and arrangements in relation to that. And on balance, I'm supportive of Councillor Pattis's motion. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm assuming, Councillor Pattis, that you don't want to say any more to close out debate?
Thank you, Chair. No.
Thank you. I will now put the motion. Those in favour of the motion? Those against? Motion is carried. Thank you very much indeed. Just to wrap up, noting that this committee is a delegated and only deals with building planning matters, are there any matters of general or urgent business from councillors? There aren't. Thank you. Confidential business. Councillors, are there any matters of confidential business to deal with tonight? There are not. Before I close the meeting, I want to thank all of you who have joined us both in the chamber and on the YouTube channel this evening, and I declare the Urban Planning Delegated Committee meeting closed. Thank you very much.